Escherichia as a tool for disease risk assessment of drinking water sources. What is going on here in this study? We're taking a look at the NIH National Library of Medicine. So many diseases have been associated with poor drinking water quality, including diseases caused by diarrheic pathogens, especially in developing countries where access to consistent water supply is a problem. Keeping that in mind, this is still an issue in the U.S., but this is a good study to understand the health risks of E. coli, as the objective of the study was to evaluate the health risks associated with the sources of drinking water in Daycare West District of Ghana using E. coli as a measurement tool, aiming at ascertaining the paths leading to contamination of the water sources. A total of 464 water samples were obtained for analysis. Sampling covered a year across the dry and wet seasons in Ghana, and water samples were obtained from groundwater and surface water sources. E. coli counts were determined using the probable number method. MPM, disease risk assessment, was carried out by the WHO Drinking Water Risk Assessment Guidelines, and generally the study revealed significantly higher E. coli counts in the wet season than the dry. And among the water samples analyzed, surface water, especially from the dams, was found to pose the highest disease risk as opposed to other water sources, and samples from groundwater sources, especially boreholes, posed the lowest disease risk. What was their conclusion? Observations from the study implied most water sources in study district had highly polluted with bacteria pathogens beyond recommended safety guidelines. So it goes in today, water is a scarce resource, particularly in the developing world. Globally, 663 million people do not have access to safe water. How might that affect you in the U.S.? Well, we need this for the global economy, and also if people are having problems in these areas, this could also affect you. So rural communities in sub-Saharan Africa account for more than 50% of lacking potable water. So this is huge. It causes things like typhoid, death, and other problems. And good water quality is a vital depending factor for human health. This is the most used resource, which directly relates to socioeconomic progress of a country. Thus, the importance of water cannot be overemphasized. These water-related infections are a result of pollution of water sources due to anthropogenic influences on population growth, urbanization. The pollution leads to the development of propagation of the pathogenic waterborne microorganisms. E. coli is one of the major pathogens associated with waterborne diseases. A natural E. coli is a facultative anaerobic bacterium that inhabits the largest gastrointestinal tracts of warm-blooded animals. Therefore, the existence of E. coli in food or water normally signals recent fecal contamination or poor hygienic conditions in food processing facilities. Thus, fecal contamination, poor sanitation measures, or poor storage conditions have a major influence on the E. coli population. The mere existence of E. coli in water doesn't imply that the presence of disease-causing microbes are there, but it does give an indication of the possible existence of fecal-borne microorganisms. So we can see actually a map of the Daycare district of Ghana. So this is a problem based on the topography, the drainage, the climate and vegetation, the sample collection analysis, and they found 464 water samples obtained from drinking, a study analysis, and that was carried out throughout the year in wet and dry seasons in Ghana. Now, sampling and care were followed by the guidelines of the WHO, while the analysis of samples were carried out by the APHA. And sterile bottles were used to collect the water samples from each of the sites and taken to the laboratory for analysis. Now, confirmation of E. coli was carried out aseptically, planting the tubes with acid and gases formation from LEMB agar in Petri dishes to obtain pure isolates, and the plates were incubated at 35 Celsius with a standard error of 0.5 Celsius for 18 to 24 hours. And the incubated plates were examined for centrally dark and flat colonies or not having a metallic sheen. And these morphological features are associated with E. coli, and a maximum of 5 E. coli from LEMB plate was oculated into slants of PCA and incubated at 35 Celsius for about 24 hours. And we can see the water sources right here. We can see what's going on with the boreholes, with the dry season, wet season, and the p-value, and the information here. So this is a problem for the developing world, but this is also a problem that can be here in the United States. So wherever you're at, it's always a good idea to periodically test your water for microorganisms such as E. coli.